Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of the Shock and Awe podcast, arguably the most dangerous commentary show on Beyonce's internet. I am your host, Mr. Robbie Hollywood, and what a show we got for you this week. The Women's World Cup is once again upon us, and with it comes the eternal debate on the gender pay gap amongst athletes. We'll do a deep dive to find out if said pay gap is real or if it's an actual myth. Production pictures of the new Snow White movie recently leaked, and needless to say that it looks as though Disney might have yet another box office flop on its hands. Has tipping gotten out of control? And are we as a society in need of reevaluating the meaning of generosity? And finally, our goofy of the week this week is a young lady that just might have single-handedly set millions of women's rights back due to an uncouth attitude. Find out who and much more on this week's episode of the Shock and Awe podcast. So, this week marked the beginning of the Women's Soccer World Cup being held in Australia and New Zealand this year. And once again, just like we do during every World Cup, we found ourselves confronted with the same cartoonishly ridiculous conversation of equal pay amongst athletes of all genders. For the next month, our television sets are going to be accosted by one purple-haired gremlin after the other, vomiting talking point after talking point, all utterly divorced from reality in unhinged soliloquies like these. Jesse, the receipts.
Thank you, everyone, for having me here today. It is an honor to be here in front of you. It's probably no surprise, but equal pay and equality in general is a deep and personal passion of mine. And what we've learned and what we continue to learn is that there's no level of status and there's no accomplishment or power that will protect you from the clutches of inequality. One cannot simply outperform inequality or be excellent enough to escape discrimination of any kind. And I'm here today because I know firsthand that this is true. We're so often told in this country that if you just work hard and continue to achieve, you will be rewarded, and rewarded fairly. It's the promise of the American dream, but that promise has not been for everyone. The United States women's national team has won 4 World Cup championships. We've won 4 Olympic gold medals on behalf of this great country.
So, if you are paying attention to Megan Rapinoe in that clip, you might have caught her emphasis on the fact that the U.S. women's team has won 4 World Cups compared to the men's 0. Therefore implying that the women are a better team by comparison and should be paid the same, if not more, than the men. And look, I'm not trying to take away from Megan Rapinoe and the U.S. women's soccer team's accomplishments. They're obviously very good at what they do. But even with all the World Cups they have won, they exist in an entirely different stratosphere, skill-wise, compared to the men. It's not even close. The U.S. men's team is not that good compared to other men. But against the women, there is not even a conversation to be had here. A prime example of this is how often the world champion U.S. women's team loses by jaw-dropping margins against men's teams ranging from under 15 boys all the way to legitimate retirees. Jesse, the sad receipt.
Again, you got to be careful. There's a shot, and there's a goal. First goal for the keeper. Nice spin move here by Lloyd. Lloyd! Another shot and another goal. And yet,
look for the players running off of him. It's a big ask, but
well, there's Trundle able to turn and get another goal. But Trundle able to keep it with the left, and Trundle with his second goal. It's now 5-0.
Yeah, so far so good in this game.
So far so good. Another goal. Trundle Murkoff trying to move around, and that's going to be a nice pass. Murkoff takes that shot with the left.
And swinging to make that perfect contact.
And that was...
I mean, it's a fast pace. You know, a lot of these guys have a lot of experience, a lot of goals as well.
So, this actually once again drives home the point of the unfair advantage biological men competing in women's sports have. What you just saw there is the best women's soccer team in the world competing against a retired Wrexham squad made up of gout-riddled car salesmen and chartered accountants. This tracks with the fact that athletes that might be considered to be mediocre in the men's leagues seem to catapult to the top of the food chain once they transition into the women's leagues. Now, let's address the whole matter of revenue, which, if we're being honest, is the real elephant in the room here. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So let's take a second and crunch some numbers here. So according to Forbes, the World Cup in 2014 brought in $73 million on the women's side, of which players got 13%. The men's side, on the other hand, brought in $4 billion, of which 9% went to the players. As for the World Cup in Russia, the men generated $6 billion in revenue, of which less than 7% went to the players for a grand total of about $400 million. Meanwhile, the women's side generated $131 million, of which $30 million went to the players. That means that according to these figures, women are taking home 20% of the entire pot compared to the men's 7%. Technically speaking, if women wanted equal pay, they should be getting paid less if we're strictly basing this off of a share of revenue compensation method. Now, if what they mean by equal pay is the actual amount, meaning that women should also get to split $400 million, this would insinuate that they're asking to split 4 times the total amount of money brought in by the entire tournament. Where is that money supposed to come from, Megan? The reason why it is a comical suggestion is because that money does not exist. And this applies to the majority of sports as well. The WNBA generates $60 million in total revenue every year to the NBA's $8 billion. The reason why male players get paid more is not because of the patriarchy or misogyny. It's simply because there is just more money to go around. So the only way that the equal pay demands as they're currently being made can be fulfilled is by paying the men way less, therefore making the owners richer since they will get to keep the difference. The question we should be asking ourselves instead is, why is there such a disparity between the interest levels in men versus women's sports? Simply put, no matter how much lipstick you put on that pig, men are just better at sports. They're more interesting to watch because they're faster, they're more athletic, they dribble quicker, you name it. But now, let's flip the coin and take a look at an industry where women are paid far more than men. For example, the top 10 male models combined last year made a grand total of $8 million. On the flip side, the single highest paid female model made nearly $30 million all by herself. Why are there no marches on the Victoria's Secret headquarters? There should be angel wings ablaze in the streets and battalions of SWAT team deployed to quell the civil unrest caused by this terrible injustice. But we understand the reason why that happens, and no one is blaming the matriarchy for this, is because we understand that female models make more money because they're worth more. They're more beautiful than the man. Women can model more things beyond clothes like makeup and jewelry, which male models can do as well, but men don't buy nearly as much jewelry and makeup, therefore affecting the amount of money and revenue that male models actually bring in. So no, toots. The patriarchy is not the reason why LeBron James makes 300 times Brittany Griner's yearly salary. It's because in order for me to make sure that this analogy landed, I had to use Brittany Griner, the 35th highest paid player in the WNBA, with the #1 name recognition for everything other than basketball. Because I had a feeling you cannot name another WNBA player off the top of your head, even if I put a gun to it. Absolutely preposterous. So, last week saw the unfolding of the Snow White saga after pictures of the production leaked, and let me tell you the entire thing. Starting with the obvious, the decision to cast Rachel Zegler as Snow White. Snow White, in the original tale, is described as having lips red as roses, hair dark as ebony, and skin white as snow. It is literally in the name. If you're going to cast a woman of Hispanic descent to play the role of Snow White, then I want Hispanic influence all over the movie. Think Snow Brown and the Seven Cholos. This also means that the apple gots to go. I want to see Snow White biting in a chimichanga for continuity purposes. Now, one casting error in the name of virtue signaling is one thing. But casting Gal Gadot as the evil stepmother is just nothing short of criminal incompetence on behalf of the casting director. All they did was put the mirror into an impossible position where it now has to lie to Gal Gadot when she asks which one is the fairest in the land. That is ridiculous. Which brings us to the tiny elephant in the room. As you may remember, the original story is entitled Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. As part of the story, Snow White runs off in the forest in an attempt to get away from her evil stepmother. And during her fugue, encounters a group of dwarfs that offer her shelter, food, and security. Half of the movie is a character study on these men who have to learn to work together and develop compassion for one another in order to accomplish their goal of keeping Snow White safe. And it's a beautiful story, really. That was until the most famous dwarf in the world went on Paul Mirren's WTF podcast and said this. Just see the receipts.
There's a lot of hypocrisy going on, I gotta say, from being somebody who's a little bit unique, front row seat to some...
Really? Like what? Like what do you see?
Well, it's really progressive to cast literally no offense to anything, but I was a little taken back by the they're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White.
Yeah.
But you're still telling the story of Snow White.
Yeah.
Seven Dwarfs.
Sure.
So, look, take a step back and look at what you're doing there.
Yeah.
I know. That makes no sense to me.
But,
You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of seven dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough. I don't know what studio that is, but they were so proud of that, and all love and respect to the actress and to the people who thought they were doing the right thing. But I'm just like, what are you doing?
It's interesting with Peter Dinklage because, it takes a Peter Dinklage to point that out, where everybody was like, yeah, oh my God, it's amazing. And then you hear his perspective, but that's like with everything else. It's, it only takes one person to sort of point something out. And then you're like, oh yeah, right.
And there you have it. Peter Dinklage, in one self-cannibalizing fell swoop, managed to render every dwarf actor in Hollywood unemployable. The damage control team at Disney immediately went to work following that podcast and replaced all 7 dwarves with what looks like an amalgamation of vagrants. Not to mention the fact that one of the 7 dwarves is now a woman, leaving the creatives in the adult industry with some room for a potential spin-off. Insiders are telling me that the entire script is nothing short, pun intended, of a bukkake fest. I'm very much looking forward to it. Now, I try to do the math here. If you factor in the body doubles and stunt performers, we're talking about at least 24 dwarf actors who will now be heading back to the unemployment line. Some of these young men have been waiting their entire lives for an opportunity like this to come around, so they can finally get to showcase their acting chops. But according to Peter Dinklage, unless it's him, all other dwarves in front of a camera should be playing circus freaks or human dogs. Oh, but they weren't done. They were not done. Why stop at casting when on the quest to ruin one of the most beloved fairy tales of all time? The woke scalpel was then turned onto the story itself. Here is a clip of Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot telling us what we can look forward to in the new Snow White movie. Jesse, the receipts.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937. And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that
she's
is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign. I am.
Really? Really? Snow White is a boss babe now? Ma'am, nobody's paying $20 to watch a movie about some broad climbing the corporate ladder while occasionally eating ice cream by herself on her couch in a condo full of cats. How is that even an original take? That is literally the premise of every show and movie on the W network. Sure, why bother making a movie about the redeeming power of love, where you can stitch together some feminist menstrual rag about the selfish wants and needs of yet another modern day woman? The sad part is that Disney has been trying to shove these stories of self-actualized female protagonists chasing their life goals without the help of a man down our throats for the last decade, and they continue to be one flop after another. So let's summarize what we have here. A classic European tale about a young woman with skin as white as snow, now being played by a Latina. Because, representation is essential when we're talking about 19th century German folklore. A story about a search for true love that is no longer about true love because we want to risk triggering lonely, strange-colored hair feminists who will never go in to see the movie to begin with. And 7 dwarves who are no longer dwarves. Because Peter Dinklage might be a man of small stature, but his ego is the size of King's Landing. And offending it is a crime against humanity. Absolutely preposterous. Folks, there is an ongoing epidemic of pointless tipping, and it currently has our entire society in a merciless chokehold. Back when we used to be a God-fearing and orderly society that believed in the rule of law, we had an understanding that tips were for waiters, waitresses, and food delivery people. It was a rare and solemn occasion for one to exercise their generosity muscle. I have personally sent so many waitresses to college, there should be a statue of me in every Denny's on the Western Hemisphere. When the bill comes, I am damn near a philanthropist. But my magnanimous generosity began to wind down right around the beginning of the Obama administration when you started noticing tip jars creep up inside coffee houses. All of a sudden, every time I go to get myself a cup of Java, I'm being emotionally blackmailed by some woman with bad acne and holes in her ears, side-eyeing the tip jar beside her in between sugar scoops. I see the jar, Stephanie, and I'm still not tipping you for pouring coffee in a cup. You don't like it? Let me back there and I'll pour in my goddamn self. And is it me or the service is getting worse and worse every day that goes by? The only food establishments allowed to greet me with a stank face are the Jamaican joints. Because we all know that when it comes to Jamaican restaurants, the worse the attitude, the better the food. I don't want to hear no keying in the kitchen while I'm waiting for my oxtail. When I glance back there, I want to see a mean old lady with swollen ankles and dangling triceps named Earlene, telling the girl at the front to answer my request for coleslaw with a resounding, "We're not of that." Everybody else, you want me to tip, I'm going to need to see those pearly whites from the moment I walk in to the moment I walk out. No exceptions. I don't care if you're exhausted and understaffed. You should have married rich. And how dare you? How dare you ask for tips from people picking up takeout? Aren't you embarrassed? Asking for a tip for someone for just handing them a plastic bag is nothing short of panhandling. At least have the decency to do it from a busy intersection. But if you really want to have an idea of how absurdly high the entitlement level has gotten, check out these receipts. Just see if you will.
You can go to pickup, waste my time, waste my money.
It's a waste of my time ordering this. Hey, I told you quit ordering this shit.
Huh?
I'm talking to somebody else. But yeah, man, I can't.
I come here very faster, only 5 minutes.
I give you money I give you a tip every time. I mean, if you add it up, that's it.
Doesn't matter. Every time I service you, you should give me the tips.
Man, tip. But look, here, I'ma still give you a tip. That shit adding up, man. Man, life ain't free. Give me next time you come. I'm gonna order some rice. Bring me an extra box.
I'm no owner. I cannot make decisions.
I just want a tip of rice. You gonna do that for me?
I'm not owner. I cannot make decisions.
I'm not the owner of that either. I don't know. All I do is order.
Talk to the owner.
Would you talk to the owner about your tip then?
I can talk to the owner, but
okay,
I cannot make decisions.
Hey, be blessed, man. Be blessed.
This food delivery driver is furious over the tip she got.
I need to speak to you. I don't think you realize where they're coming from, so I need to speak to you.
Where what's coming from?
The driver who delivers for DoorDash was captured on the homeowner's Ring camera.
I drove 40 minutes, and it was extremely far, and I got it to you early. So I don't think you realize where you work from.
That's a 15, 20-minute drive.
It's not. You need to try to drive it. I just drove it. It's 40 minutes.
Well, we decided to check for ourselves. The restaurant was in Comac, New York. The house was in Smithtown. According to Google Maps, that's a 5.5-mile drive and should take only 12 minutes.
I think you need to adjust your tip to make it right.
So, what was the tip?
You gave an $8 tip.
What the hell are you looking for? I gave an $8.
Okay, I'm going to bring the food back. I'm going to bring the food back. Okay.
That's right. She took the food back.
These people are obviously feral and out of control. And it is well past time that the government stepped up and introduced regulation to bring some order to a demonstrably chaotic situation. I say we go back to the basics. Tips are for waiters, waitresses, and a few grandfathered-in professions. like barbers and valet guys. Everybody else live on your wage or learn how to code. Because this gravy train has came to an absolute stop. Absolutely preposterous. Our Goofy of the Week this week goes out to a young lady by the name of Tiara Allen, commonly known by her TikTok handle, the Sassy Trucker. Miss Allen came to prominence a few weeks ago following her arrest in Dubai for yelling at a car rental agent. Jesse, the receipts.
The last 2 months are described as terrifying for a Houston woman who we're told is being detained in Dubai.
Fox 26's Domely Keith joining us live near downtown Houston with why she's being held. Domely.
Well, the crime she's charged with may surprise you, and Dubai is increasingly becoming a vacation spot for a number of Houston women. One who's there right now, according to her social media page, is trying to get back to the Bayou City. But according to her mom, her passport has been confiscated because she was charged with screaming in public.
Yes. It also could result in prison time. So it's very scary.
The trip turned terrifying for Tiara Young Allen when her mom says she was a passenger in a friend's rental car and they got into an accident there in Dubai. Tina Baxter says when her daughter went to the company to retrieve her ID, credit card, and other items left in the rental, Baxter says it did not go well.
She found out that she could only receive those items if she paid an undisclosed amount of money. She dealt with a very aggressive individual, a young man there who was screaming at her.
Baxter says her 29-year-old daughter ultimately yelled back at the rental car agent, she says, resulting in her being charged for screaming there in Dubai.
And so she is in jail for one reason and one reason alone. She raised her voice. In that country, a female is not even allowed to raise her voice. If she raises her voice, it's punishable by jail time.
It's been very emotional. There are some days I stay up all night crying.
They have a strict law system that is really based on theocracy.
This website warns, quote, laws and customs are very different, so be aware of your actions to ensure they don't offend while in United Arab Emirates. Now, after Baxter says her daughter was charged with screaming in Dubai, her passport has been taken, and the American social media influencer who works as a truck driver can't leave the UAE, according to her mom. And her mom says she's been placed under a travel ban pending the outcome of the investigation.
It's very frightening. The longer she's been there, the more reality has started to kick in.
In our opinion, she did not commit a crime. Don't punish women for doing the same thing a man can do in Dubai. It's not fair and it's not right.
Now, the 29-year-old does now have an attorney there in Dubai, and her mom says she's told that she could face jail time because there is surveillance video of her screaming. Now, we have reached out to the U.S. and the UAE embassies. Will government officials step in and give her assistance? I'm still awaiting responses.
Now, if we are to believe that French bulldog-looking gentleman, you would think that this is a young woman who merely defended herself against a theocratic man in a country that hates women. But upon further digging, we unearth more receipts, documenting exactly how sassy the Sassy Trucker actually is. Jesse, the receipts.
Y'all remember the lady that got hemmed up in Dubai, right? The one that got arrested for screaming in public. Guess what? A chick that knows her sent me a video showing her character. Check it out.
Don't think you're gonna talk shit
I'm gonna act like that
and run off.
I'm gonna act like that.
Cause you're a bitch.
Yeah, she just threw soda on him and called him a bitch. That's the sound of her destroying the property in the Airbnb that they're in. They also said she was waving around a knife, and ultimately they had to call the police and kick her out of the Airbnb. Yeah.
Let this serve as a public service announcement. Ladies, if you have the conflict resolution skills of a pit bull, Habibti, don't come to Dubai. These Arabs are enforcing a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to sass. You will be arrested, tried, convicted, and incarcerated in a timely fashion. How many international incidents can we go through at the hand of black women? The last one resulted in an international war criminal being let loose in exchange for Brittany Grant. All because she couldn't curb her taste for the devil's lettuce long enough to make it through customs. And now, Congolese child soldiers are once again flush with enough AK-47s to take out the entire eastern seaboard. Thanks a lot, Brett. Don't you people understand that a sassy trucker can only exist in America? Women were not even allowed to drive in the UAE until 2018. And you're yelling at a rental car clerk? This is not Devin from your local Hertz. They don't play that strong, independent woman game in the UAE. Matter of fact, out there, those words are an oxymoron. They're the equivalent of saying things like sexy tooth decay or an Amish electrician. Total and complete gibberish. You just might have single-handedly jeopardized the driving rights of millions of Emirati women. I wouldn't be surprised to hear of an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss setting the clock back to 1963 as far as women behind the wheel are concerned. Your attitude is a threat to progress, madam. And that is why the UAE government must now implement a strict travel ban for the following groups of people. If you land on UAE soil with a bonnet and fuzzy slippers on, you will be immediately put on a flight back to where you came from. If you land on UAE soil with a hair color that does not belong on humans, you will be immediately put on a flight back to where you came from. If you land on UAE soil with nails that belong on a bird of prey, you will be immediately put on a flight back to where you came from. If you land on UAE soil using the word axe instead of ask and putting the word period at the end of your sentences, you will be put on a flight back to where you came from. If you land on UAE soil in any Sheen or Fashion Nova outfits, you will be put back on a flight to where you came from. You can find these and many more travel ban details at your local UAE embassy. Absolutely preposterous. And that'll do for the show this week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. Please don't forget to share, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button so you know when we're uploading new content. We're trying to reach 5,000 subscribers before October, so each and every form of engagement helps. Until next time, stay preposterous.